A drink sitting in your kitchen right now, something you probably believe is soothing, natural, and healthy, may be dosing your body with the same pesticides used on industrial farms and the same chemicals flagged by toxicologists for hormone disruption and cancer risk. And the worst part, these brands market themselves as calming, comforting, or even wellness boosting. But behind the boxes, behind the herbs, behind the natural labels, lies a supply chain soaked in contamination. Americans drink 159 million cups of tea every single day, and many of those cups come from companies that have been caught selling tea with pesticide residues, heavy metals, and chemicals banned in multiple countries. So, which tea brands are quietly polluting your body while pretending to protect it? Let's start with one of the biggest names of all. This brand feels wholesome, gentle, safe. Sleepy time is practically an American bedtime tradition. But years ago, when independent labs tested Celestial's herbal teas, what they found wasn't relaxing at all. Multiple blends contained pesticides far above accepted limits. Some were chemicals banned decades ago because of their links to endocrine problems, neurological damage, and cancer. One of the most disturbing discoveries came from a children's Goodnight blend that tested positive for a pesticide California doesn't allow in any food. Imagine tucking your child into bed with a cup of comfort, not knowing the herbs inside were contaminated before they ever touched hot water. Celestial denied wrongdoing and pointed to their own brewing safety tests. But the bigger issue isn't what ends up in the brewed liquid. It's that the dried leaves themselves were ever that contaminated. Because when a company allows its herbs to reach that state, it tells you everything you need to know about their supply chain and how closely they're watching what goes into your cup. Teavana built its entire reputation on being premium, exotic, sophisticated. Walk into one of their old mall stores, and you'd be handed samples of colorful blends with names like Youthberry or Monkey-Picked Oolong. High-end jars, high-end prices, high-end image. But when labs examined Teavana teas, 100% of the samples tested contained pesticide residues. Not one or two chemicals. Some had more than 20. One variety alone contained 23 different pesticides, including substances banned for their links to infertility and fetal harm. Many Teavana teas would fail European pesticide standards, meaning they wouldn't even be allowed onto shelves overseas. Yet in the US, these teas were sold as luxury wellness drinks. That contrast, the marketing versus the reality, wasn't just ironic, it was alarming. This wasn't a cheap supermarket brand cutting corners. This was a premium brand asking you to pay more for what turned out to be a polluted product disguised as indulgence. If you grew up in the US, you've probably had Lipton. It's in diners, grocery stores, hotel rooms, and family kitchens. It's the default tea bag of America, but mass scale brings mass problems. Investigations have found multiple pesticide residues in Lipton's teas, sometimes as many as 10 to 17 chemicals in a single blend. Some of the pesticides detected in supply regions sourcing Lipton teas have long been linked to neurological issues, hormone disruption, and increased cancer risk. Even more concerning, some raw tea leaves tested positive for pesticides that are banned in the United States. They weren't supposed to be used at all, yet they were still showing up. Lipton isn't necessarily aiming to deceive people. It's simply operating at a scale where quality control gets overwhelmed by global farming realities. The problem is that tea is something people drink daily. And when you drink something every day, even low-level contamination becomes a silent, cumulative exposure. Twinings looks refined, elegant packaging, historic British branding, the kind of tea you imagine aristocrats drinking in quiet drawing rooms. But when independent labs tested some of their classic blends, including Earl Grey and English breakfast, they detected multiple pesticide residues, some above acceptable safety limits. Twinings sources its leaves from multiple countries, including regions where pesticide regulations are weak. When enforcement is inconsistent, contamination becomes almost inevitable. Some chemicals found in Twinings samples have been associated with impacts to the liver, kidneys, and immune system when consumed long-term. And the danger here is subtle. People reach for Twinings because it feels safe, old-fashioned, and trustworthy. But heritage doesn't protect your body. Only clean ingredients do. Bigelow built its empire on familiarity. Constant Comment, Plantation Mint, all-natural green tea. These are staples. But Bigelow's reputation took a hit when testing detected glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, on some of their tea leaves. Legally, the levels were within limits. But that's not the point. When a brand markets itself as natural and wholesome, even trace amounts of controversial weed killer feel like a betrayal. The concern with glyphosate isn't acute poisoning. It's accumulation, the small daily exposures, the cup you drink every morning for years, the body that absorbs it bit by bit, while companies say everything is technically within regulations. And this is the heart of the issue. Legality isn't the same as safety. Just because a chemical is allowed doesn't mean your body wants it. Yogi is the kind of brand people trust blindly. Organic labels, chakra-inspired names, calming colors, and those little messages on the tea tags that make you feel grounded and spiritual. That's why the 2024 recall hit so hard. Nearly 900,000 tea bags of Yogi's organic echinacea blend were pulled due to pesticide contamination that exceeded federal levels. Not borderline, not close, exceeded. Organic products are supposed to be free of synthetic pesticides, so when one ends up contaminated enough to trigger a nationwide recall, it exposes a flaw in the entire chain, from farm to warehouse. If something that was certified organic can still be this contaminated, what does that say about oversight? What does that say about the batches that never get tested? And what does that mean for the person drinking Yogi every night to boost immunity? If you've ever browsed the budget section of the tea aisle, you've probably seen this brand. It looks humble, simple, unthreatening. Green box, classic font, the kind of thing you'd assume is just a plain, harmless cup of tea. But when Canadian investigators tested multiple brands to see which ones contained the highest number of pesticides, Uncle Lee's wasn't just on the list. It was the worst offender. One sample contained an unbelievable 22 different pesticides, not minor traces, not borderline. Several chemicals exceeded allowable limits by several multiples. That includes endosulfan, a substance banned in over 80 countries because of its links to infertility, birth defects, and severe neurological toxicity. Think about that. A pesticide so toxic that it has been phased out around the world, yet it appeared in a tea brand sold to American families for everyday drinking. Investigators said the results were so extreme that some cups could exceed daily safety limits in a single serving. And when journalists confronted the company, their response wasn't reassuring. A representative shrugged it off and said what happens on tea farms is out of their control. That attitude tells you everything. If a brand won't even pretend to care about contamination, imagine what goes unseen. Walk into Walmart, Target, Kroger, or nearly any supermarket, and you'll find their house brand teas. Affordable, convenient, everywhere. And because they're sold by trusted retailers, people assume they're safe. But these teas often come from the same low-monitoring, low-regulation farms that supplied the contaminated batches found in independent tests. When researchers looked at the cheapest black and green teas across multiple chains, many contained pesticide residues and, in some cases, heavy metals. That's the part most people miss. Tea leaves, like sponges, absorb whatever is in the soil. If the soil contains lead, cadmium, or aluminum from industrial runoff or pollution, those metals can end up in the leaves you steep. Heavy metals don't leave the body easily. They sit in bones, in organs, in brain tissue. And while a single cup isn't dangerous, the daily repetition is where the silent damage happens. Store brands aren't necessarily evil. They just have supply chains too large and too fragmented to ensure real purity. And when retailers prioritize low cost, farmers use the cheapest growing methods available. Those methods often involve heavy chemicals. These teas are everywhere on Instagram and TikTok. Pretty pastel packaging, influencers smiling with flat stomachs, claims like cleanse, reset, flush toxins, get a flatter belly. It sounds harmless. Herbs, metabolism support, maybe some green tea, but most of these detox teas rely on a single ingredient, senna. Senna is a natural laxative. It has a medical purpose, but it's meant for short-term use, like treating occasional constipation. Not for daily drinking, not for weeks or months, and yet these teas tell people to drink them red carpet style. Every day, sometimes twice a day. What happens when you do that? Chronic diarrhea, electrolyte imbalances, dehydration, disrupted digestion. In some cases, long-term use even leads to laxative dependency, where the colon literally stops functioning normally without the stimulant. And this doesn't even address the unregulated blends hiding behind proprietary labels, which sometimes contain diuretics strong enough to impact heart rhythm. You're not detoxing, you're stripping your body of water and minerals it needs to survive. The weight you lose is water weight, and it comes back as soon as you rehydrate. So if you ever see a tea promising to melt fat or flatten anything, remember, real tea doesn't do that. Only dangerous laxatives disguised as diet hacks do. This is the category most people forget: instant iced tea powders, dissolvable tea crystals, liquid tea concentrates. They feel quick and modern, perfect for people who don't want to wait for a bag to steep. But convenience has a price. When independent labs tested various instant tea powders, some came back with alarming findings. PFAS, the forever chemicals used in nonstick pans, heavy metals from manufacturing equipment, and residues from chemical flavor additives. PFAS are especially concerning. They don't biodegrade, and they accumulate in the human body over time. Their nickname, forever chemicals, isn't a metaphor. They stay in your blood, in your tissues, sometimes for decades. Combine that with added sugars, artificial flavors, artificial colorings, and tea extracts sprayed onto carriers with questionable purity, and what you're drinking is less tea and more industrial beverage with tea DNA. If your tea comes in a powder, packet, or squeeze bottle, assume it's processed far more than your body wants. Before we get into the clean tea brands you can trust, there's something you need to know, because most people assume tea is simple. Dried leaves, boiling water, done. But tea is one of the least regulated products on the shelves, and unless you know what to look for, you can't tell the difference between a clean cup and a contaminated one. The biggest mistake people make is assuming all tea is safe. It's not. Tea leaves absorb everything around them. Pesticides, polluted soil, heavy metals, chemicals used in drying facilities. And unlike fruit or vegetables, you can't wash tea. Whatever is on those leaves goes straight into your mug and into your bloodstream. Then there's the tea bag problem. A lot of tea bags aren't actually paper. They're plastic mesh or bleached paper treated with chemicals so they look smooth and bright white. Drop that into boiling water and guess what? Microplastics and chemical residues come with it. That's why so many people are suddenly trying to switch to cleaner brands. They're realizing the bag itself can be as risky as the tea inside. So here's the quick rule of survival. If the tea bag is bright white, looks silky, or feels like fabric, avoid it. If the ingredients list includes natural flavors, avoid it. If the company won't say where the tea comes from or how it's tested, avoid it. Clean tea is simple. Organic leaves, no artificial flavors, no mystery blends, no plastic-filled bags. Everything else is just marketing. And now that you know how to protect yourself, here are the brands that actually do it right. Numi is the brand people switch to when they finally get fed up with mystery ingredients and chemical aftertastes. The founders started the company after traveling through tea farms in Asia and seeing firsthand how often leaves were sprayed, bleached, or blended with cheap fillers. They wanted to prove that tea could taste incredible without chemical shortcuts. Today, every Numi tea is USDA organic, non-GMO, and traced all the way back to the farm. They don't hide behind natural flavors because the real ingredients actually taste good. And they're bags, unbleached, plastic-free, and safe in boiling water. When labs test Numi, the results are consistently clean. It's one of the few brands where you can drink a cup every day and know exactly what's in it and what's not. Rishi started small, just a handful of tea obsessives who wanted to source tea the old world way, directly from farmers, by name, not through giant brokers. The founder spent years visiting remote villages, tasting leaves straight from the drying racks, and building relationships with growers who refuse to use chemical pesticides. That obsession shows in the final product. Rishi uses whole leaves, not dusty leftovers. Their bags are biodegradable. Their teas don't need artificial flavors because the farms they partner with grow leaves strong enough to stand on their own. When you open a bag of Rishi, the smell alone tells you it's the real thing. Clean, bright, earthy. It's the difference between tea grown for taste and tea grown for volume. This brand feels like something your grandmother would have kept in the cupboard, just in case. But the story behind it is even more serious. Traditional Medicinals was founded with one rule. If an herb isn't pure enough for professional herbalists to prescribe, it doesn't go in their tea. Most tea companies test their leaves once, maybe. Traditional Medicinals tests multiple times, for identity, for microbes, for heavy metals, and for contaminants that never show up on labels. They treat tea like herbal medicine, not a casual drink. And that's why their blends, especially things like throat coat or peppermint, taste clean, fresh, and powerful. You feel the difference because the plants were grown the right way. Choice Organics is one of those brands people walk past without realizing how rare it actually is. Before organic tea became trendy, they were already doing it, long before most companies even cared about chemical-free farming. The story behind Choice is simple. They wanted to make tea that didn't require consumers to hope for safety. So from day one, every single one of their teas became certified organic and fair trade. That's not marketing fluff. Those certifications mean their farms are regularly inspected, pesticide use is restricted, and workers are treated fairly. What really sets them apart, though, is their packaging. Choice was one of the first major brands to ditch plastic tea bags completely. No nylon mesh, no bleached paper, no metal staples, just unbleached plant-based paper that doesn't leak microplastics into your cup. And the flavor? It tastes like what tea is supposed to taste like. Clean, smooth, fresh. Because the leaves aren't loaded with chemical residues or dust from industrial processing. If you're still here, then you've officially learned more about tea than most people will in their entire lives. And that matters, because tea is one of those quiet habits that can either support your body every single day, or slowly put stress on it without you ever realizing why. Most people never question what's inside that little paper bag. They trust the branding, the colors, the words natural or herbal, and they assume someone out there is checking everything for them. But now you know the truth. Some brands cut corners, some ignore contamination, and some, thankfully, go above and beyond to keep your cup clean. You don't have to memorize every ingredient or every bad brand. You just need the awareness you have right now. Check the bag, read the label, choose companies that actually care, and never assume the cheapest or most popular option is the safest. And the best part? Once you switch to clean tea, you genuinely feel the difference. The flavor is smoother, you don't get that weird dry mouth feeling, and you actually enjoy the ritual instead of wondering what's floating around in the water. If this opened your eyes or helped you make better choices, drop a comment and let me know which tea you're switching to next. And if you want more videos breaking down the hidden truth behind everyday products, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, thanks for taking your health seriously, and I'll see you in the next video.